They said no emotion could break the doctrine, until something did. An alien crashed into a Texas barn and learned how to feel. So, what happens when the galaxy meets human grief? Tell me where you're watching from, and subscribe to see how far humanity can feel. The storm hit the Texas Panhandle like God himself had a score to settle. Elias Boone stood on his porch at 3 a.m., watching lightning crack the sky open, and thought about his wife's last words. She'd said the coffee tasted burnt that morning. Not "I love you," not "goodbye," just burnt coffee. That was 4 years ago. 4 years of talking to chickens, because they never talked back about the things that hurt. The sky screamed. Not thunder, something else, something wrong. A streak of blue-white fire tore through the clouds, spinning, breaking apart, trailing sparks that looked almost alive. It wasn't a meteor. Meteors didn't course correct. Meteors didn't scream in frequencies that made his teeth ache. It hit his barn with the sound of the universe breaking a promise. Elias grabbed his shotgun, not because he knew what to do with it, but because holding something familiar made the impossible feel less so. His boots squelched through mud that smelled like ozone and burnt metal. The barn doors hung open, one hinge melted clean through. Inside, his chickens had gone completely silent. That scared him more than the crash. The wreckage sat in the center of his barn like a sculpture made of mirrors and regret. It wasn't burning despite the heat shimmer around it. The metal looked organic, flowing like it had grown instead of being built. Panels peeled back on their own, revealing an interior that glowed with soft blue light. And inside, curled up like a broken bird, was her. She couldn't have been more than 5 feet tall. Silver skin that caught the light and threw it back in shades of blue he didn't have names for. Hair so pale it was almost transparent, floating slightly like it forgot about gravity. When she opened her eyes, they were vertical slits of amber that locked onto him with an intensity that made him forget how to breathe. She opened her mouth. He raised the shotgun. She said, in a voice that sounded like wind chimes and honey, "Help!" Just that. One word. In perfect English with an accent he couldn't place. Elias lowered the gun. Not because he trusted her, but because the fear in her voice was so human it hurt. She tried to stand. Failed. One leg bent at an angle that made him wince. Silver blood leaked from a gash on her shoulder, luminescent and wrong. She looked at him with those impossible eyes and said something in a language that tasted like mathematics. Then she passed out. Elias stood there for a solid minute, shotgun hanging loose in his hands, trying to figure out how exactly his life had become a bad sci-fi movie. His first instinct was to call someone. The sheriff, the feds, anyone who got paid to deal with crashed aliens in Texas barns. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way she'd said help. Maybe it was the fact that he hadn't talked to another living soul in 3 months. Maybe it was just that he was so goddamn tired of being alone that even an alien seemed like better company than the silence. He carried her to the corner of the barn, laid her on a pile of clean hay, and locked the door behind him. Then he went inside, poured himself 3 fingers of whiskey, and stared at his phone for an hour. Morning came too fast and too slow all at once. Elias made coffee out of habit, burnt it out of tradition, and tried to convince himself last night had been a dream brought on by cheap liquor and cheaper grief. But when he walked to the barn, his chickens were huddled outside the door, refusing to go in. His rooster, which he'd named Chick Norris in a moment of weakness, pecked at his boot like an accusation. The door creaked open. She was awake. She'd moved during the night, arranged his tools in geometric patterns on the workbench, organized the scattered hay into perfect circles, and she'd somehow convinced his chickens to come inside and form a semicircle around her while she fed them from her cupped hands. She looked up when he entered. Those amber eyes caught the morning light streaming through the broken roof. She tilted her head exactly the way Chick Norris did when confused. "Your small warriors have interesting tactical formation," she said, gesturing at the chickens. "But their aggression protocols seem delayed." Elias blinked. My what? Small warriors. She pointed at Chick Norris, who was strutting around like he owned the place, which, to be fair, he did. They possess natural weapons and territorial instincts, yet they do not attack. Why do you keep warriors that do not fight? They're chickens, Elias said slowly, like explaining algebra to a toddler. They make eggs. She processed this with an expression of pure confusion that somehow made her look more human. You breed warriors to produce nutrition spheres? Eggs. And they're not warriors, they're just birds. All birds are warriors. Your species simply forgot. She stood, wincing, testing her injured leg. It still bent wrong, but she walked on it anyway. You locked me in here, but you also left food and water, and you did not alert your planetary defense forces. Why? The question hit him sideways. Elias set down the coffee mug he'd brought without thinking and leaned against the workbench. Honestly? I don't know. Maybe I'm going crazy. Maybe I figure the government will just dissect you or something. Maybe I'm just tired of making choices that get people killed. She studied him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. Then she said, soft as a prayer, You are in pain. Dense pain. It has weight. I can feel it pressing against my senses like gravity. Elias felt his jaw tighten. Yeah, well, join the club. I do not understand this idiom, but I would like to. She took a careful step closer. My name is Rinala of the Villari. I am a fugitive from the doctrine of void, and you, human, are the first being in 2 solar cycles who has shown me kindness. She extended a hand. Silver skin caught the light. Elias looked at it like it might explode. Elias, he said finally. Elias Boone, and I didn't show you kindness. I locked you in a barn. Yes, she said, and something that might have been a smile played at the corners of her mouth. But you locked me in safely, with food, and your warriors for company. Before he could respond, she asked, Why did you lock me in, Elias Boone, if you are afraid of being alone? The question knocked the air from his lungs. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again like one of his chickens. How the hell do you know that? I am Villari. We sense emotional resonance as thermal signature. Your isolation is not circumstance. It is choice. You chose to be alone. She tilted her head again. But you do not want to be. The contradiction causes you pain. Elias felt something crack open in his chest, something he'd kept locked down tight for 4 years. He turned away, gripped the edge of the workbench hard enough to hurt. My wife and kid died in a shuttle accident, he said to the wall. Some jackass pilot was drunk, clipped a transport. 47 people gone in 12 seconds. I wasn't there because I was here, fixing a goddamn tractor. Silence stretched between them. Then Rin-Allah said, quiet as falling snow, And you believe if you had been there, you would have died with them. I know I would have. And you wish you had. Elias didn't answer, didn't need to. Rin-Allah moved closer. He could feel the heat of her, strange and cool at once. The doctrine of void teaches that emotion is contamination, that attachment is weakness, that the only pure state is absence of feeling. She paused. I was sent for correction because I could not stop feeling, because I looked at beauty and wept, because I formed bonds with others and called it friendship instead of tactical alliance. She touched his shoulder. He flinched but didn't pull away. Your species is quarantined, Elias Boone. Did you know this? The galaxy calls you volatile, dangerous, emotionally unstable. They study you from distance because they fear what you feel might be contagious. Sounds about right, Elias muttered. But I think, Rin-Allah said, and there was wonder in her voice. I think they are afraid because your emotions are your strength, and they have forgotten what strength truly is. Elias turned to look at her. Really look. at this impossible creature with silver skin and amber eyes who'd crashed into his barn and his life, who'd organized his chickens and somehow seen straight through to the wound he'd spent 4 years trying to ignore. "You can stay," he heard himself say. "But you stay in the barn. Can't have folks seeing you. This is Texas. They shoot first and ask questions never." Renala's face did something that might have been a smile. "I accept these terms, but Elias Boone." "Yeah? Do you think your warriors would accept me feeding them? I find their company comforting." Elias looked at Chick Norris, who had decided Renala's foot was a good place to sit. "I think they already made that choice." "Biu." As he walked back to the house, the sun breaking over the Texas hills, Elias felt something he hadn't felt in 4 years. Not happiness, not yet, but maybe the memory of what happiness used to feel like. Behind him, through the barn door, he heard Renala trying to sing along to the radio he'd left on. She was catastrophically off-key, hitting notes that probably violated several laws of physics. Despite everything, Elias smiled. That night, as he sat on his porch with his guitar, he played the old songs, the ones his wife loved, the ones that hurt too much to play, and through the barn window, he saw a soft blue glow. Renala, sitting with his chickens, listening. For the first time in 4 years, Elias didn't feel like the only living thing on his land. But what he didn't know, as he played into the darkness, was that 200 miles above, a Volari search vessel had just detected the energy signature of an escape pod, and they were very interested in getting their fugitive back. 3 days passed like a fever dream. Elias found himself making 2 cups of coffee every morning. The second one he'd take to the barn, along with whatever breakfast he could scrounge. Renala didn't need human food, she explained. Her species could metabolize light and simple sugars, but she liked the ritual of eating together. She especially liked watching him burn the coffee. "You do this intentionally?" she asked on day 2, taking a careful sip and making a face that suggested she'd just tasted battery acid. "Force of habit. My wife used to say I could burn water if I tried hard enough." Renala tilted her head in that bird-like way she had. "This is humor, yes? Your species uses terrible experiences as bonding mechanism. Pretty much sums up being human." "Fascinating." She took another sip, winced, but kept drinking. The Volari would simply state the coffee was suboptimal and require correction. And humans? Humans apparently drink suffering for breakfast and call it tradition. Elias laughed. Actually laughed. The sound startled them both. That afternoon, he caught her organizing his tools again. This time she'd arranged them by molecular density, which would have been impressive if he had any idea what that meant. When he asked, she spent 20 minutes explaining metallic crystalline structures with such enthusiasm that he almost understood. Almost. "You really love this stuff, don't you?" he asked when she finally paused for breath. "The doctrine says intellectual curiosity is acceptable. Emotional attachment to knowledge is not." She picked up a rusty wrench, turning it over in her silver hands. "But yes, I love it." "Is that wrong?" "Kid, if loving things is wrong, then we're all going to hell in a handbasket." She processed this for exactly 3.7 seconds. Hell is a metaphysical punishment construct. Handbaskets are woven containers. How does one travel to abstract suffering in woven containers? Elias rubbed his face. "It's just an expression. Your language is aggressively imprecise." "Yeah, we get that a lot." The chickens had fully accepted Renala as part of the flock. Chick Norris followed her everywhere, which Elias found both hilarious and slightly insulting. His rooster had better taste in women than he did. On day 3, Renala made a discovery that changed everything. She found his guitar. "This is a sound-making device," she said, holding it like it might explode. "It's a guitar. You make music with it." "Music." She said the word like tasting wine. "Organized vibration for aesthetic pleasure. The doctrine permits music only for communication efficiency. Your species creates it for emotion, pretty much." Show me. Elias hesitated. He hadn't played for anyone since his wife died, but something about the way Rinala looked at the guitar like it held secrets of the universe made him take it from her hands. He played something simple, an old Johnny Cash song his wife used to love. His fingers remembered even if his heart didn't want to. Rinala's eyes went wide, then wider. Then she made a sound like a whale having an existential crisis and tried to sing along. It was the worst sound Elias had ever heard. Absolutely catastrophic. She hit notes that didn't exist in any known musical scale. Her voice warbled between frequencies like a broken radio searching for signal. And Elias laughed until his sides hurt. Actually laughed. Deep belly laughs that felt like coughing up 4 years of dust. Rinala stopped, confused. Did I perform incorrectly? Sweetheart, you just murdered Johnny Cash and he's been dead 50 years. I do not understand. Was the sound production insufficient? It was gloriously, magnificently terrible. He wiped his eyes. But don't stop. Please don't stop. So she didn't. She butchered every song he played, and he laughed until he couldn't breathe, and for 3 perfect minutes, the weight in his chest felt lighter. That night, sitting in the hay with Chick Norris asleep on her lap, Rinala asked, "Why do you play music for someone who cannot hear?" Elias froze, fingers on guitar strings. "I see you," she continued softly. "Every night, playing the same songs, but you look at empty space. You are performing for a ghost. I'm just practicing. You are maintaining connection with the dead because releasing them feels like betrayal." Her voice held no judgment, just observation. "The Velari are taught this is illogical, but I think it is the most logical thing I have seen." Elias set the guitar down carefully. "The last thing my wife said to me was that the coffee tasted burnt. Not I love you, not goodbye, just a complaint about coffee, and I can't stop thinking that if I'd made it right, just once, maybe she'd have said something else. And that is why you still burn it." It wasn't a question. Elias felt something break open in his chest. Something he'd kept locked behind 4 years of stubborn silence. "I keep burning it because it's the last thing she asked me to fix, and if I fix it, then she's really gone." Rinala moved closer. He could feel the cool heat of her, strange and comforting. "Grief is not logical, Elias Boone. But your species holds grief like holding hands with the past. You do not release it because releasing it means accepting you cannot change what happened." "And your species?" "We are corrected. The doctrine removes strong emotions through neural recalibration. We are taught that attachment leads to suffering, and suffering is weakness." She paused. "But I think your species has it right. I think suffering is the price of love, and love is worth any price." "Is that why you ran?" "Yes," her voice barely above whisper. "They came for my correction 3 moon cycles ago. I would have forgotten everyone I cared for, every moment of joy, every connection, every reason I chose to be alive. They would take it all and call it healing. So you stole a ship. I stole an escape pod. The distinction is important to me, but not to them." She looked at her hands. "I crashed because I did not know how to pilot. I survived because my species is resilient. I am here because you chose kindness over fear." Elias met her eyes, those impossible amber eyes that saw too much and understood more. "You can stay as long as you need, even if it is dangerous?" "Kid, I've been dying slowly for 4 years. Danger sounds like a vacation." She smiled, actually smiled. It transformed her face from alien to something achingly familiar. "I think I understand why your species terrifies the galaxy, Elias Boone. You choose connection even when it costs everything." "Yeah, well, we're stupid like that." They sat in comfortable silence, chickens roosting around them, until Rinala asked, "May I ask a personal question?" "Shoot." "Your language uses violence metaphors for communication permission. This is aggressively confusing. Elias grinned. "Welcome to humanity. What's your question?" "Why do you call this one Chick Norris?" She held up the rooster, who'd woken up and looked mildly offended by the attention. "It's a pun. Chuck Norris was an action star. Chick because he's a chicken. It's funny because it sounds similar." Renala stared at him, processed, stared more. "You named your warrior bird after ancient entertainment personality using phonetic similarity as humor foundation? When you say it like that, it sounds dumb." "No," she said slowly. "No, I think I am beginning to understand. Your species finds joy in smallest details, in pattern recognition that serves no survival function. You create humor from nothing because the alternative is despair. That's pretty much the human condition, yeah? It is beautiful." Her voice held wonder. "The doctrine says inefficient joy is waste of resources, but you create it everywhere, in names and music and burnt coffee and patterns that do not matter. You are surrounded by small beautiful things and you notice them all." Something in the way she said it made Elias's throat tight. "We try." The next morning, disaster walked through his door. Elias was making coffee, burning it with religious dedication, when he heard the truck. Old diesel engine. Familiar. Unwelcome. Hank Peterson. His neighbor. The kind of man who thought the Antares incident proved every alien was out to kill humanity, and who quoted scripture while cleaning his gun collection. Elias met him at the door. "Morning, Hank." "Boone?" Hank tipped his hat. Everything about him screamed suspicion. "Saw some strange lights couple nights back. Figured I'd check you weren't having trouble." "Just the storm. Lightning hit close." "Uh-huh." Hank's eyes drifted toward the barn. "Mind if I take a look? Been hearing funny noises. Don't want any coyotes getting your chickens." Elias's blood went cold. "Appreciate the concern, but I've got it handled. Won't take but a minute." He was already walking. Elias moved to intercept, but Hank was faster, suspicion making him bold. He yanked the barn door open, and froze. Renala stood in the center, silver skin catching morning light, holding Chick Norris and singing off-key to herself. She looked up, saw Hank, and her eyes went wide. For one perfect second, nobody moved. Then Hank screamed, drew the pistol he always carried, and fired. The bullet hit the wall 3 inches from Renala's head. She dropped Chick Norris and threw up her hands. Not surrender. Defense. A pulse of blue energy exploded outward, knocking Hank backwards 10 feet. Elias was already moving, putting himself between them. "Hank, stop! That's a fucking alien, Boone, in your goddamn barn! She's not dangerous! The hell she's not! You see what she just did?" Hank scrambled for his pistol. "Antares, Elias! Remember Antares! These things are killers! She's a refugee! She's an abomination!" More trucks, more voices. Word traveled fast in small towns. Within minutes, Elias's driveway filled with neighbors, all armed, all scared, all looking at Renala like she'd personally killed their families. And through it all, Renala stood perfectly still, hands raised, terror radiating from her in waves Elias could almost feel. Above them, so high it was barely visible, a Valari scout ship adjusted its orbit and locked onto the signal. The hunt was over. But the real fight was about to begin. The standoff lasted exactly 90 seconds before it went to hell. 12 men, 11 rifles, one very angry town that remembered Antares like it was yesterday. Elias stood in his barn doorway with empty hands and a racing heart. Between Renala and every weapon pointed her direction. "You're all making a mistake," he said, forcing his voice steady. "Only mistake is you hiding an alien." Hank spat. Blood ran from his nose where he'd hit the ground. "You know what they did at Antares? 47 people torn apart, and you're keeping one as a pet?" That wasn't the Valari. That wasn't even intentional. It was a panic response that spiraled. "And you think this won't spiral?" Sheriff Martinez stepped forward. He was old school, careful, but his hand rested on his sidearm. Elias, I've known you 20 years. This isn't like you. Harboring an illegal alien, actual alien on your property. Federal offense, planetary security risk. She's not a risk, she's scared. Damn right she should be scared, someone called from the back. After what her kind did. Elias felt his temper, buried under 4 years of numbness, finally wake up. Her kind? You mean refugees? Fugitives from a government that lobotomizes anyone who dares to feel something? You want to punish her for escaping thought police? I want to protect my family from alien attack. Then you're looking at the wrong threat. Elias's voice cracked. She's been here 3 days. You know what she's done? Fed my chickens, sung bad music, asked questions about coffee, real dangerous stuff. Hank pushed forward, pistol raised. She attacked me. You shot at her first. Doesn't matter. She's got powers. Did you see that energy blast? That's a weapon, Boone. That's military hardware in skin form. That's a scared girl who defended herself. That's not a girl. That's an it. Something in Elias snapped. 4 years of grief and rage and loneliness, all compressed into one moment of crystalline fury. He walked forward, straight toward Hank, until the pistol pressed against his chest. You want to shoot something, Hank? Shoot me, because you're not touching her. Behind him he heard Renala's voice, small and breaking. Elias, do not. Please, I will go. I will surrender. Do not sacrifice yourself for me. Shut up, kid. Elias? I said shut up. He kept his eyes locked on Hank. 4 years ago I lost everything. Wife, kid, reason to wake up. I've been a ghost in my own life, waiting for permission to die. And then this impossible creature crashes into my barn and reminds me what it feels like to give a damn about something. So no, Hank, you don't get to take that from me. Not again. Hank's hand shook. You're choosing an alien over your own kind. I'm choosing kindness over fear. I'm choosing someone who needs help over someone who wants to hurt. And if that makes me a traitor to humanity, then humanity can go to hell. Elias, move aside. Last warning. No. The moment stretched. Hank's finger tightened on the trigger. Rhinala made a sound like breaking glass. Sheriff Martinez stepped forward, hand out, saying something about de-escalation, and then federal drones dropped from the sky like mechanical angels. 6 of them. Military grade, probably been monitoring since the crash. They circled the barn, weapons hot, broadcasting in flat government voices. All civilians stand down. Unidentified entity in barn is now federal custody. Resistance will be met with force. Hank lowered his pistol, looking vindicated and terrified. See? Government knows. They'll handle it. Elias felt his stomach drop. Federal custody meant labs, dissection, study. Everything Rhinala feared. He turned to look at her. She stood perfectly still, hands raised, face empty of everything except resignation. She'd already given up. No, Elias said quietly. Not like this. Elias Boone, the drone voice said. Step away from the entity. Her name is Rhinala. Step away, or be detained. I don't think I will, Rhinala's voice cracked. Please, you have already given me more than I deserved. Let me protect you now. Let me go. Kid, I don't know how things work on your planet, but here, we don't abandon family. I am not your family. Maybe not by blood, but your family by choice, and that counts for more. Her face did something complicated, something between hope and heartbreak. Your species is insane. Yeah, we get that a lot. The drones descended. Elias spread his arms wide, making himself a bigger target, his chickens scattered in panic. Chick Norris, brave idiot that he was, charged a drone and pecked at its landing gear. Final warning, Mr. Boone. Come and get her. Everything happened at once. Hank, spooked by the drones, fired. The bullet meant for Rhinala caught Elias in the shoulder. White-hot pain. He staggered, dropped to one knee. Rhinala screamed. Not words, pure sound. Anguish and rage compressed into a frequency that made the drones stutter in mid-air. She moved faster than thought, caught Elias before he hit the ground. Her hands blazed blue-white, pressing against the wound. He felt heat, cold, something like electricity and honey all at once. The pain didn't stop, but it changed, became distant. "You do not die," she said, voice layered with harmonics he could feel in his bones. "You do not leave, not for me, not for anyone. You stay." Around them, the mob stepped back, because Rinala wasn't just glowing anymore. She was burning, blue light cascading from her skin like solar flares. Her eyes went completely white. When she spoke, her voice echoed, "I am Valari. We are taught the doctrine of void. We are corrected until we feel nothing. But I have lived 3 days with this human. I have learned what your species knows by birth, that love is not weakness, that connection is not contamination, that choosing to feel, even knowing it will hurt, is the bravest thing in the universe." She rose, still holding Elias, and faced the drones. Faced the crowd. Faced everything that wanted to take her apart to see how she worked. "You fear us because we remind you of what you have forgotten. That emotion is not the opposite of reason. It is the reason for reason. We think because we feel. We survive because we care. And this human, broken and grieving and impossibly stubborn, taught me that in 3 days your species has spent millennia trying to unlearn." Hank raised his pistol again. His hands shook. "It's still a monster." "Then what does that make you?" Sheriff Martinez's voice cut through. "She just saved Elias. You shot him." "I was aiming for her." "I know, that's the problem." Martinez turned to the drones. "Federal override request. Local sheriff declares no threat detected. Recommend stand down pending diplomatic review." The drones hesitated. Artificial intelligence trying to process variables it wasn't programmed for, like compassion, like nuance, like the way an alien girl cradled a bleeding human and cried silver tears that pooled on the barn floor. Then a new voice, cold, precise, broadcasting from orbit. "Negative local authority. This is Valari Reclamation Ship Doctrine Keeper. The entity designated Rin-Allah is corrupted property of the Valari Collective. She must be returned for correction. Human interference will be noted and escalated." Rin-Allah's light dimmed. She looked up at the sky like seeing her own execution. "They found me." "How long?" Elias asked through gritted teeth. The pain was coming back. "Hours, maybe less. The ship carries a correction team. They will retrieve me. They will erase everything I learned here, everything I felt. I will return empty." "Like hell you will." "Elias, you are injured because of me. Your community wants me gone. Your government wants to study me. My people want to unmake me. There is no scenario where I survive as myself. Then we make one." "How?" "You are one human, with burnt coffee and broken dreams. I am one defective Valari with stolen time. We cannot fight the galaxy." Elias pulled himself upright. Blood soaked his shirt. His shoulders screamed. He looked at this impossible creature who'd crashed into his barn and his life, and reminded him that caring about things was worth the hurt. "Kid, I'm going to tell you a secret about humanity. We don't fight the galaxy. We make the galaxy uncomfortable until it leaves us alone. And right now, I'm feeling very uncomfortable about people who think emotions are diseases that need curing." He turned to the crowd, to his neighbors, to people he'd known his whole life. "I'm going to help her. And you can either help too or get out of the way, but I'm done letting fear make my choices. I'm done letting good people suffer because bad things happened once. I'm done being so afraid of pain that I forget how to feel anything else." Sheriff Martinez was the first to speak. "Federal government wants her. Aliens want her. What exactly can we do?" "Buy time. Make noise. Be human." Elias looked at Hank. "Even you, especially you. You lost your brother at Antares. I lost my family to a drunk pilot. We both know what it's like when the universe takes someone we love. Don't become the thing that took them." Hank's face worked. Anger, fear, grief, all fighting for control. Finally, he lowered the pistol. "I don't trust her." "You don't have to. Trust me. You're bleeding out in a barn, Boone. Your judgment is questionable. Always has been. But I'm right about this." The drones moved closer. The ship in orbit powered weapons. Rinala's light flickered, unstable and beautiful. And Elias Boone, stubborn Texas farmer with a bullet in his shoulder and nothing left to lose, smiled. "All right, everyone. Let's show the galaxy why humans have a reputation." Above them, the Doctrine Keeper prepared to descend. They had calculated every variable, every possible human response, every tactical advantage. They had calculated everything except what humans do when backed into corners and given something worth protecting. They were about to learn that lesson the hard way. The next 6 hours moved like controlled chaos wrapped in duct tape and prayer. Sheriff Martinez turned his truck into a mobile command center. Hank, still looking conflicted, started making calls to every contact he had in local militia groups. Not for violence, for noise, for making the federal government's job complicated enough that they'd negotiate. Elias sat against the barn wall while Mrs. Chen, the only person in 50 miles with actual medical training, dug the bullet out of his shoulder and packed it with something that smelled like mint and burned like hellfire. "You're an idiot, Boone," she said, not unkindly. "Yeah, getting that a lot today." Rinala knelt beside him, hands hovering over the wound. Blue light pulsed from her palms. "I can accelerate cellular repair. It will hurt. Everything hurts. Do it." The sensation was like being electrocuted by frozen sunlight. Elias bit down on a belt and tried not to scream. When it finished, the wound had sealed. Not healed, but sealed. He'd live long enough for what came next. "Thank you," he gasped. "You took a bullet for me. I merely returned tissue to minimal function." But her voice shook. "Why did you do that?" "Same reason you're trying to heal me now. Because leaving people hurting when you can help is worse than the pain." She looked at him with those amber eyes that saw everything. "Your species should not work. You are fragile. You damage easily. You have short lifespans and spend them mostly confused. But you survive anyway. Why?" "Spite, mostly. And love. Lots of love. The doctrine says love is inefficient resource allocation." The doctrine sounds like it was written by someone who never had a family. Rinala went very quiet. Then she said, "The doctrine was written after the Velari emotion wars. 3 generations destroyed themselves over grief, rage, jealousy. Billions died. The survivors decided feeling was too dangerous, so they removed it. Now we are stable, peaceful, empty. And you couldn't stand it. I tried. For solar cycles I tried. I watched beauty and felt nothing, formed connections and remembered they were tactical. Existed without living." She touched his face gently. "Then I crashed here. And you burned coffee and played sad music and named your chicken after ancient warrior. And I felt alive for the first time. Even though you knew it would hurt? Especially because I knew it would hurt. Pain means something matters enough to wound you. The doctrine removed our pain, but it also removed our purpose." Elias captured her hand, silver skin cool against his palm. "We're not letting them take you. You cannot stop them. The Doctrine Keeper carries a crew of 50, advanced weapons, compliance technology. They will retrieve me. They will correct me, and I will forget you ever existed. Then we make sure you remember." "Elias, you said you're empaths, right? You feel emotions as thermal signatures?" "Yes." "Can you record them? Store them somehow?" Rinala tilted her head. "There is a technique, memory transference. We can share emotional experiences directly through neural contact. It is used for training, but it requires immense energy and the recipient must be willing." "Why do you ask?" Elias smiled. It hurt his face. Because I have an idea. And it's probably going to get us killed. But it's the good kind of stupid. Outside, the town was transforming. Someone had strung up lights in the trees. Another person brought food. Families showed up. Not all of them, but enough. People who remembered that Elias had helped them once, fixed their tractors, played at their weddings, buried their dead. They came because he'd asked, and because deep down, humans hated being told who they could and couldn't help. Hank approached as sunset painted the sky orange. He didn't apologize, didn't explain, just said, "I got 12 hunters willing to make noise. They won't fight aliens, but they'll make the government think twice about storming a Texas farm with press watching." Press? Called in every favor I had. Should have at least 3 networks here by dawn. Hank spat tobacco. Still don't trust her, but I trust you, and I'm done letting fear make me into something my brother would be ashamed of. Elias extended his good hand. Hank shook it. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We're probably all going to jail. Probably. That night, Elias showed Renala his secret weapon, the old tractor generator in the back shed, modified over years of boredom and mechanical knowledge he'd picked up in the Air Force. It could create an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to fry electronics in a quarter-mile radius. I built it during my angry phase, he explained. Right after the accident. Thought maybe I could knock out every screen and computer in the county, force people to talk to each other again. Never used it. Because you were afraid. Because I was sensible. This thing could kill someone with a pacemaker, could crash emergency systems, could do a lot of damage. But now we're desperate, and desperate humans do impossibly stupid things. He looked at her. Can your ship withstand an EMP? For short duration. Their shielding is advanced, but drones would fail. Federal equipment would fail. We would have perhaps 90 seconds of freedom. That's all we need. For what? For you to show them what you showed me. Emotion isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing in the universe. And if we can make them feel that, even for a moment, maybe they'll understand. Renala stared at him. You want me to force emotional transference on them? I want you to give them a choice. Feel what you felt. Live what you lived. And then decide if that's something worth erasing. It could backfire. They could experience human emotion and find it revolting. Or they could experience it and remember why they were afraid of it in the first place. Elias touched her shoulder. Your people removed emotions because they were dangerous. But what if the danger was never the emotions themselves? What if it was not knowing how to handle them? You are suggesting we teach the Valari emotional regulation using a Texas farmer and his chickens as example. When you say it like that, it sounds insane. Because it is insane. But she smiled, actually smiled. Which means it is perfectly human and perfectly you. At midnight, the Doctrine Keeper descended. It didn't land. Just hovered 50 feet up, massive and silver, and absolutely wrong against the Texas sky. A voice boomed out, cold and precise, and utterly without inflection. I am Commander Thal of the Doctrine Keeper. The entity designated Renala will surrender for correction. Human resistance will be noted and punished according to Galactic Isolation Treaty. Elias stepped forward. His shoulder ached. His head spun, but his voice came out steady. She's not surrendering. You have no authority, human. Neither do you. This is Earth. We're quarantined, remember? You're not supposed to be here at all. A pause. Then Thal said, The entity is Valari property. We will retrieve what is ours. She's not property. She's a person. She is corrupted by emotional contamination. She must be corrected. Or what? She'll start caring about things? She'll form connections? She'll dare to feel alive? Yeah, real dangerous stuff there. You do not understand. Emotions destroyed our civilization once. We will not allow it to happen again. Then maybe your civilization deserved to be destroyed. Elias's voice cracked. Maybe a civilization that can't handle feeling things isn't worth saving. Silence, long enough that Elias wondered if he'd gone too far. Then Thal said, quiet and dangerous, You speak of things you do not comprehend. I speak about a girl who crashed in my barn and cried because music made her feel something. I speak about someone who organized my chickens and burned her mouth on coffee and asked me if I needed a friend. And you want to take that from her. You want to make her empty because you're afraid of what she might feel. We are not afraid. Bullshit. You're terrified. Because if one Volari can learn to feel without destroying everything, it means you didn't have to remove emotions. You just had to learn how to handle them. And that means you've spent centuries mutilating your own people for nothing. Another pause. Longer this time. When Thal spoke again, his voice carried something new. Something almost like curiosity. What do you propose, human? A trade. A test. Let Rin-Ala show you what she learned here. Experience it directly. If you still want to correct her after that, we won't stop you. And if we refuse, then you'll have to go through every human here. And we're real good at dying for stupid reasons. It's kind of our thing. Rin-Ala touched his arm. Elias, you cannot promise this. The transference could fail, could hurt them, could make everything worse, or it could save you. At what cost? Whatever it takes. He looked at her, really looked, at this impossible creature who'd reminded him what caring felt like. You asked me once why I still burn the coffee. It's because holding on to pain felt safer than letting go. But you taught me something, kid. Pain isn't something to hold. It's something to acknowledge, to honor, and then to release. I do not want you to sacrifice yourself for me. Too late. Already did. Bullet hole in my shoulder proves it. He smiled. Besides, someone once told me that suffering is the price of love, and love is worth any price. I'm just returning the lesson. She threw her arms around him, pressed her face against his good shoulder, sobbed in a language that had no words. Just pure emotion translated to sound. Above them, the Doctrine Keeper waited. Commander Thal calculated odds, weighed outcomes, tried to logic his way through a situation that had no logical solution. And in a barn in Texas, surrounded by chickens and stubborn humans and impossible hope, an alien girl and a broken farmer prepared to show the galaxy what humanity meant. The EMP generator hummed. Ready? The crowd gathered, waiting. And Elias Boone, against all sense and reason, felt something he hadn't felt in 4 years. Hope. Real, irrational, beautifully human hope. The kind worth fighting for. Dawn broke over Texas like a question nobody wanted to answer. The Doctrine Keeper hung in the sky. Federal drones circled. News helicopters arrived, cameras hungry. And in the barn, Elias Boone checked the EMP generator one last time while Rin-Ala stood perfectly still, gathering her strength. You ready? He asked. No. But that has never stopped your species before. That's the spirit. Sheriff Martinez stuck his head in. Thal's getting impatient, demanding immediate surrender. Federal government is threatening to escalate. We've got maybe an hour before this turns into an actual incident. Then we'd better make it count. Elias turned to Rin-Ala. You remember the plan? I initiate transference. You activate the pulse. I project our shared memories to everyone in range while their technology is disabled. They experience what I experienced, and then we pray your species' capacity for chaos is contagious. Perfect. It is not perfect. It is insane. Same thing. Outside, the crowd had grown. 50 people, maybe more. Some came to support. Some came to watch. Some came because humans couldn't resist a crisis. They stood in clusters, armed and unarmed, federal and civilian, all of them waiting for the universe to make a decision. Commander Thal descended, not the whole ship, just a shuttle. It landed in the field with impossible grace. The door opened. He was tall, almost 7 feet. Silver skin like Rin-Ala, but harder, colder. His eyes held no warmth, no curiosity, just the absolute certainty of someone who had never doubted. He walked forward alone, confident, untouchable. I am Commander Thal. I have come for corrupted property. She's not property, Elias said, and she's not corrupted. She has been exposed to unregulated emotional stimulus. She requires correction. Here, she requires freedom. Freedom is inefficient. Freedom leads to chaos. Chaos leads to destruction. Thal looked at Rin-Ala. You remember the wars. You studied the histories. Billions dead because beings could not control what they felt. The doctrine saved us. The doctrine emptied us, Rin-Ala said. Her voice shook but held. You call it salvation. I call it extinction. We survived, but we stopped living. Living is not required. Survival is sufficient. Is it? She stepped forward. When did you last feel joy, Commander? When did you last choose something because it made you happy, not because it was optimal? When did you last care about anything enough to risk yourself for it? I do not require joy. I require purpose. And what is your purpose without something to protect? What is survival without something worth surviving for? Thal's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Just for a moment. You are contaminated. This is proof. You argue from emotion, not logic. Yes, because logic without emotion is just math, and you cannot calculate your way to meaning. Elias stepped forward. His shoulder throbbed. Commander, you came here to retrieve her. We're offering you something better. A demonstration. Let her show you what she learned. If you still think she's corrupted after, we'll let you decide. I have already decided. Then you're afraid. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Thal's eyes narrowed. Valari do not fear. Then prove it. Experience what she experienced. If emotions are really just contamination, you'll know immediately. You'll be able to filter it out, correct? All that superior Valari logic should protect you. It was bait. Obvious bait. But Elias was betting on something he'd learned from Rin-Ala. The Valari removed emotions, but they didn't remove pride. Thal considered, calculated, finally said, Very well, but when I prove emotions are weakness, she comes willingly. And you humans, learn to stop interfering in matters beyond your comprehension. Deal. They moved to the center of the barn. Rin-Ala stood between them. Her hands trembled. Commander, this will not be comfortable. I am prepared for discomfort. No, she said quietly. You are not. Elias moved to his position by the generator, caught Rin-Ala's eye. She nodded once. Trust and terror in equal measure. Whenever you're ready, he said. She closed her eyes, began to glow. Blue-white light cascading from her skin like water flowing upward. She reached out, touched Thal's face with one hand, extended her other toward Elias. He took it. The connection hit like lightning made of memory. Suddenly he was her, feeling his own emotions from the outside, the weight of his grief, the density of his loneliness, the sharp edges of his pain, and the soft warmth of his stubborn, foolish hope. And then he was himself, feeling her discover it all for the first time. The overwhelming flood of human emotion hitting senses designed to detect, not experience. It should have destroyed her. It nearly did. But she held on, learned to filter, to separate, to experience without drowning. And through it all, she felt something the Valari had forgotten how to feel. Wonder. Now Elias activated the pulse. The EMP exploded outward, invisible, instant, devastating to electronics. The drones fell from the sky. The news cameras died. The federal equipment sparked and failed. For 90 seconds, the only technology working was the organic kind. Rin-Ala's light exploded. Not just to Thal, to everyone. Every human in range. Every Valari on the shuttle. The emotional transference broadcast like radio waves made of feeling. And they experienced it. All of it. The first morning, Elias's suspicion, Rin-Ala's terror, the slow, careful building of trust over burnt coffee and terrible music. The moment Chick Norris chose Rin-Ala as his favorite, the absurd joy of a chicken's approval. The night Elias played guitar and cried, the weight of grief shared without words, Renala trying to sing, the laughter that followed, pure and helpless and healing. The moment Hank shot him. The crystalline terror of watching someone you care about bleed. The decision to stand between her and death. The irrational, beautiful stupidity of choosing someone else's survival over your own. And through it all, the constant thrumming bass line of human existence. Fear and hope and love and pain all tangled together in a mess that shouldn't work, but somehow did. Thal staggered. His expression cracked. For the first time in his life, Commander Thal of the Valari Collective felt something beyond logic. He felt everything. "Stop," he gasped. "Stop. I cannot. This is too much, too loud, too alive?" Renala's voice echoed. "Yes. This is what you removed. This is what you called contamination. This is what it means to be awake." The Valari on the shuttle were crying. Actual tears, silver tracks down silver faces. They'd felt joy and immediately understood what they'd lost, felt grief and recognized the hole in their existence. One of them fell to his knees and laughed. Just laughed, because he'd forgotten laughter existed and finding it again was worth every moment of confusion. The humans wept too, because they'd felt Renala's perspective, felt what it was like to experience emotion for the first time, felt the terrifying, gorgeous intensity of caring when you'd spent your whole life empty. Hank was sobbing, full body shaking, because he'd felt his own grief from outside and realized he'd been weaponizing pain instead of healing it. Sheriff Martinez stood perfectly still, tears streaming, one hand over his heart. Mrs. Chen held her husband and whispered, "I forgot what it felt like to fall in love the first time." And in the center of it all, Thal stood perfectly still, experiencing the full weight of human existence. The good, the bad, the beauty and the horror, and the absolute, irrational insistence on meaning in a meaningless universe. "We did this," he said, voice breaking. "We removed this. We took this from ourselves. We called it weakness. But it is not weakness. It is strength. It is purpose. It is the reason for existing at all." He looked at Renala. Really looked. Saw her not as corrupted property, but as someone who had found something precious that his entire civilization had lost. "I cannot take you back," he said. "I cannot correct this, because you are not broken. We are." The transference ended. The light faded. Renala collapsed. Elias caught her. She was lighter than air, heavier than grief. Her skin flickered between silver and translucent blue. "Did it work?" she whispered. "You just made an entire Valari commander question his purpose in life." "I'd call that working." Thal turned to the shuttle. To his crew, all of them transformed by 90 seconds of human experience. New protocol. The entity Renala is reclassified as cultural liaison. The doctrine is suspended pending review, and humanity is upgraded from quarantine to diplomatic consideration. He looked at Elias. "Your species should terrify us. You are fragile and violent and emotionally unstable, but you are also alive in ways we forgot how to be. And perhaps that is worth learning from." "Does this mean she can stay?" Elias asked. "It means she has a choice, as all beings should." Thal addressed Renala directly. "You can return with us. Help us remember what we forgot. Or you can remain here, with the beings who taught you how to feel. The decision is yours." Renala looked at Elias, at the barn, at Chick Norris, who had somehow survived the chaos, and was pecking at her feet, demanding attention. "I must return," she said quietly. "My people need to learn what I learned. But I will come back, to visit, to remember, to make sure I never forget how to burn coffee." Elias felt his heart crack and heal in the same moment. "You'd better. Someone needs to keep these chickens organized." She touched his face. "You taught me that broken things can still be beautiful. That grief is the price of love. That choosing to feel, even knowing it hurts, is the bravest thing in existence. You taught me that sometimes the universe crashes things into your barn for a reason. They stood there, human and alien, both of them changed by 3 days that shouldn't have mattered but changed everything. Thal approached, extended a hand to Elias. It took the human a moment to realize what it meant. A gesture, learned from observation, imperfect but genuine. They shook. "Your species has a saying," Thal said. "Fuck yeah, I believe it applies here." Elias laughed. Actually laughed. Yeah, it does." The shuttle lifted off. Renala stood in the doorway, waving until she was just a point of light against the sky. The crowd dispersed slowly, quietly, changed by what they'd felt. Hank approached Elias, couldn't meet his eyes, just said, "I'm sorry," and walked away. Sheriff Martinez clasped his shoulder. "You just changed galactic policy with an EMP generator and emotional projection. That's got to be some kind of record." "I'll take it." That night, Elias sat on his porch with his guitar. Played the old songs, but they didn't hurt quite as much anymore. 6 months later, a Volari shuttle landed in his field. Unannounced. Unexpected. Rin-Ala walked out, carrying something that glowed with soft blue light. "I brought you something," she said. "A memory seed. It grows into a flower that shares emotional resonance with those nearby. Your wife, your son. It will not bring them back. But when it blooms, you will feel what they felt. Love, hope, all the things they never got to say." Elias took it with shaking hands. "Thank you." "No, thank you. The doctrine is dissolving, slowly, painfully, but dissolving. The Volari are learning to feel again, and it is terrifying and beautiful, and I have you to blame. Anytime you want to crash in my barn, doors open." She smiled. "I think next time I will use the landing pad we are building." Landing pad? Did I forget to mention? The Volari Collective has designated Earth as cultural exchange site. We will be sending liaisons to learn your ways. Starting with me. I hope you have room for a very confused alien who cannot sing." Elias looked at his barn, at his chickens, at Chick Norris, who was already waddling toward Rin-Ala, like greeting an old friend. "I think we can make space." That spring, the memory seed bloomed. And for one perfect moment, Elias felt his wife's hand in his, felt his son's laughter, felt everything he thought he'd lost forever. It hurt. Of course it hurt, but it also healed. And in a barn in Texas, an alien girl taught chickens to organize themselves while a broken farmer remembered how to hope. The galaxy watched, learned, and slowly, carefully, began to understand what humanity had known all along. That love is not weakness. That emotion is not contamination. That suffering is not something to remove, but something to honor and transform. That being alive means feeling everything, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts, because pain means something mattered enough to wound you, and mattering is the whole damn point. In the Volari archives, one line was added to Earth's file: approach with caution, approach with curiosity, approach with open hearts, because humanity does not conquer through strength. They conquer through the radical act of caring. And once you let them care about you, you are changed forever. Commander Thal read it and smiled. It was the first time he'd smiled in 300 years, and somewhere in Texas a farmer played guitar while an alien sang along, beautifully, catastrophically off-key. The universe had never sounded better. In the end, it wasn't about saving a planet or rewriting a doctrine. It was about remembering that the things that break us are often the same things that prove we're alive. Elias Boone didn't teach the galaxy logic. He taught it heartbreak, bad coffee, and the terrifying beauty of caring anyway. And maybe that's what being human really means, to keep burning the coffee just to remember the smell of love. So, what do you hold on to, even when it hurts? If you could erase your pain, would you still recognize yourself? And when the universe tells you to feel less, how much are you willing to lose to stay human? If you made it this far across the stars with us, write "feel" in the comments so we know you didn't let the doctrine win. Tell us where on Earth or off it you're watching from. Subscribe, like, and share this story with someone who still believes that emotions are humanity's most advanced technology. And stay tuned for the next journey. It's already glowing on the screen before you. Because out here, in the vast and absurd universe, humanity freaking feels.